period. Okay, so let's look at question 203. Question 203 is on page 39. As shown in the diagram below, CD is the median, is a median of ABC. So all a median is it breaks these two pieces into equal parts. So which must always be true? That's the first one. AD always has to equal DB. Line L passes through the point 5, 3 and is parallel to this. What's the equation of the line? Oh, that's not helpful. Yep, I just noticed. So why don't we first set up y equals mx plus b? So we'll subtract 5x from both sides. So my original equation is negative 5x plus 6. Because it says parallel, I need to have the same slope. So my parallel slope is also going to be negative 5. So immediately I can eliminate choice 1 and choice 3. Now it says I need to do 0.53. So people who need help, this is your time to get help right now, not draw on yourself. So here we have 5, 3. So now we're going to plug these points into each of these and see which one we get. So I'm going to plug it into the first one. I've got 3 equals negative 5 times 5 plus 28. Well, 3 equals negative 25 plus 28. That is true. So the answer is choice 2. For this next one, it wants to know the perimeter of the square. It tells us that the diagonal is 3 square roots of 2. We don't know the length of the side, so we're going to use the x. But now we can find what x is using the Pythagorean theorem, because this is a triangle. This is a right triangle because squares have right angles. So we've got x squared. We've got x squared plus x squared. I need to have enough space to write on this. Equals 3 square roots of 2 squared. When we combine these, this leaves us with 2x squared. If you type this into the calculator, you should get 18, because this is really 3 square roots of 2 times 3 square roots of 2. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2, so this leaves us with 18. If we divide both sides by 2, we'll be left with x squared by itself. And then we're going to take the square root. So we get x equals 3. But the question asks for the perimeter. So now we know that all of these sides are equal to 3. So 3 times 4 is 12. No, not with me recording. I'm going to keep going. So for 206, can you see like that? For 206, as shown in the diagram below, when right triangle DAB is reflected over the x-axis, its image is triangle DCB. So here we have DAB. This is the original triangle. It gets reflected onto the white triangle. So which statement justifies this? Well, when it says congruent, so orientation is not preserved. Points on a line of reflection remain invariant. That's true, but that doesn't tell us why those two measures are the same. Right angles are congruent. That's true, but that doesn't deal with why things are equal. The reason why things are equal is distance is preserved under reflections because it's an isometry. 207. In the coordinate plane, the locus of points 5 units from the x-axis is. All locus means is it means all. So here's our x-axis. It wants all the points that are 5 units away. Well, 5 units away can go up, and 5 units away can also go down. So if we keep going 5 up and 5 down, eventually we would get this line right here and this line right here. Well, this is y equals 5. And this is y equals -5. So the answer is choice 2. I don't think you'll get that on the EOC. (28) In the diagram below shows a construction. Which theorem was used to justify the construction? This construction is called copying an angle. If two lines are cut by a transversal, the alternate interior angles are congruent. That's true, but these two angles are not alternate interior, so it's not number 1. If two angles are cut by the transversal and the interior angles are on the same side, it's supplementary. That's also true, but both of these angles are not interior. If two lines are perpendicular, they are parallel. Not relating to this one, so it's got to be this last one that deals with corresponding angles. Alternate interior would be this angle here and this angle here. That would be alternate interior because they're both on alternate sides of the transversal and they're both inside the parallel lines. That would be alternate interior. Number 209. 209 will not be on your test. It deals with logic. All converse means is switch the order. So this is if an angle is 90 degrees, it's a right angle. All it means is the right angle comes first and the 90 degrees goes second. So if an angle is a right angle, then it measures 90 degrees. But you will definitely not have that on your test in Georgia. 210, it wants perpendicular. So I'm going to show you what we've talked about a couple times before. And whenever you need to find the slope, and it's in this order, it's just the opposite of A divided by B. So the opposite of +2 is -2. And then whatever the B is 4. So we're left with -1/2. It wants the perpendicular slope. So the perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal. So it would be +2. Choice 2. Yep. Because this is -1/2. So if we have 2x plus 4y equals 12, there's two ways I can do it. The first way I can do is I can subtract 2x from both sides, and I'm left with 4y equals -2x plus 12. And then I could divide each thing by 4, which gives me y equals -1/2 x plus 4. So that's the way I've always showed it to you. But there was one day I showed you that you can also do it with this, where anything in front of the x is A, anything in front of the y is B, and the way that you find the slope is you take the opposite of A and divide it by B. So the opposite of 2 is -2. The opposite of, and then the 4 stays the same. So there's 4, there's 4. I reduce this fraction, and that gives me the slope of -1/2 for the original equation. But now, since it says it wants the perpendicular slope, I need the opposite reciprocal of this. So the opposite is, this is negative, it's got to be positive, and then I flip the fraction. But you could also do it this way, which is the way we usually do it. It's just very rare that you'll see it like this down here. 21. Trapezoid QRST is graphed on the set of axes below. Which transformation will be there? No invariant points. Again, I don't think you're going to get this. We have a reflection on y equals 0. Well, this is y equals 0. S would be the invariant point, so it's not choice 1. A reflection on x equals 0 would be this line right here. R would be the invariant point, because if we reflected it over, R would stay in the same place, so it's not 2. A reflection of y equals x. Well, y equals x would be here. So that means Q would stay in the same spot. So it's this one. It's a reflection of 0, 0, which would actually rotate it down here. But again, I would be surprised if you see invariance in Georgia. Not saying anything. 212. If triangle MNP and triangle is congruent to VWX and PM is the shortest side, what's the shortest side here? Well, it tells us PM. Well, P, it matches to X, and M matches to V. In one of the after school reviews, I showed you this trick, or no, it was the boot camp. Sometimes I like to write the letters right on top of each other so I can see how they match. So I know my P has to go with X, my M goes with V. So my answer is XV. So sometimes that helps with congruence. Wait, what? Do you need me to say it again? So because this says it's congruence, I know that anytime I do a transformation that's an isometry, everything has to be corresponding. So because this is M and P, I know that has to match with VWX. So the M will match to the V, the N will match with the W, the P will match with the X. This says that PM is the shortest side. Well, P matches to X and M matches to V, so that means XV has to be the shortest side. Flip. 213. Is it 10:30? Oh. Advisement. Oh. Okay, this one I've kind of already done, but I'll explain it to you. I don't know if you'll see it like this on the EOC. This is more of an analytic geometry question. Daniel knows that. Oh, I thought he was just blowing his nose. You're just blowing your nose, right? It's advisement, so we leave at 10:30 today. Okay. Next. So it tells you that ET, this line here, is perpendicular to this. So these you have to kind of think of three-dimensional space. And it wants to know which is not true. Well, BAD would be this going straight down in green, which you can't really see on the screen, but that would be perpendicular. So all of these are actually perpendicular to this line. The only one that's not perpendicular is BAT, because BAT is literally this touching that same line. But I highly doubt you'll get this in Georgia. This one you will get down here. Question 214. The answer is 3, but let me explain why. The first one says, DE is the diameter, and it says it's a perpendicular. So now because it's perpendicular, we know that this is really a perpendicular bisector. So it says SL and TL are congruent. Well, that's true because it's a perpendicular bisector. So those two pieces have to be equal. RS and DR. Well, here's RS, is here in pink. Here's DR. Even though they might not look like it, they are the same measure because they're both radii of the circle. And we know all radiuses of the circle, or all radii of a circle, are the same. RL is this piece, and LE is this piece. That is not always true. This last one is true because that's the idea of part times part equals part times part that we did during the circles unit. So that's always true. It's just stating a formula. $2.15. We have triangle ABD with ABC. It tells us that BE and AD are perpendicular. And it tells us that EBD and CBD are congruent. And it tells us that ABE is 52. And we need to find the measure of angle D. So first, we know this is a straight line, so it's 180 degrees. And if we just, since these are the same measurement, because they say it's congruent up here, we can just put in X. So I've pretty much got 2X plus 52 equals 180. 130, 128 equals 2X. Divide everything by 2. You're left with 64 equals X. But look at, here's 64. So that's what they did. They put it there saying, look, it's 64. Well, that would be wrong because it doesn't ask for X. It asks for angle D. So now I know this has to be 64. Because this is 90, this piece here is also 90, and now I can find X again. 180 minus 90 minus 64. 90 minus 64, 30, 26. Choice 1. $216. As shown in the diagram of the rectangle ABCD below, diagonals AC and BD intersect at E. Well, because it's a rectangle, we know it's a parallelogram, so we know the diagonals bisect each other. I don't know if we need that information, but we know that that's true. It tells us that AE is x plus 2, and BD, this entire thing, is 4x minus 16, and it wants us to find the measure of this whole thing. Okay, so not only do we know the diagonals bisect each other, because it's a rectangle, we know the diagonals are the same. Because in a rectangle, when you make paper airplanes, we know that each diagonal has the same measurement. So all we're going to do is, this piece right here is x plus 2, so that means this piece here has to be x plus 2. And we know this whole thing is 4x minus 16. So we're going to do x plus 2 plus x plus 2 equals 4x minus 16. I feel like I said that fast. I'd have to say that again.
Yes.
Because this piece here is x plus 2, right here, we know that this also has to be x plus 2 because in a parallelogram, diagonals bisect each other. They also told us that this whole thing here was equal to 4x minus 16. And because in rectangles, the diagonals are congruent, we can set this yellow pieces together to equal the pink piece. And now we just solve. So we've got x plus 2 here. We have 2x plus 4. We'll stop after this question. Please don't pack up yet. 4x minus 16. Subtract. Add. So now we know x equals 10. But it doesn't have that. It has 10 here. So sometimes we'll just pick it. Oh, it's 10. But it wants to know the length of AC. AC is in yellow, so we have to do x plus 2 plus x plus 2, 10 plus 2 plus 10 plus 2, so we get 24. You also could have put 10 here. You could have done 4 times 10 is 40 minus 16 and gotten 24 that way.